since 1943.
Here's Elliott. He will get it. Touchdown Dallas as Elliott fought for it and has his 6th of the year.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson, investing his time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
5 o'clock hour. Thanks to Scott Drew from earlier today. Also David Anderson, Bosqueville High School baseball coach among Mitch Thompson. MCC plays tonight. We're joined by Jon Machota, the Athletic.com covers the Cowboys, and with us on Wednesdays in the 5 o'clock hour. So, John, I think COVID not only blew a lot of people's minds on what exists and what doesn't. So they had an OTA, and they're about to have another one. Is this a string of them? And I should, of course, have updated myself on this. Is it like a second one, then there's a break, and then there's a mini camp? Tell us what goes on between now and training camp.
Yeah, so this is actually like a second week of OTA practice, but we only get 1 day of availability. So basically, tomorrow we'll get a chance to go out there and then talk to Mike McCarthy, talk to some players. And then the following week, they'll have some availability for mini camp. And then after next week, that's it. For the veterans, I should say, because then for an additional following week after that, they're going to still have like a rookie be around the facility to more like a rookie orientation type thing, which is a new thing. They hadn't done that in the past under Jason Garrett, and they certainly didn't do it last year during COVID. So, but no, after next week, the veterans are off until training camp starts. And so, and it's just such a strange schedule because we have a good idea that we feel pretty confident they're going to go to California, but that hasn't been finalized, and there certainly have not been any dates that have been finalized. So that stuff's all kind of up in the air in terms of planning. Now, I will say this, I do believe that they will be there in California and we'll be out there, but that stuff hasn't been figured out yet. So 2 more weeks of this stuff, and then there'll be a little bit of a break.
Well, and the league had their protocols, right, that they've submitted for training camp and the season, but none of that is for what the media would have to do, right?
It's really not. I mean, that's still like kind of a work in progress. I mean, as of right now, they could technically allow us to be out there to watch practices in California, but not be able to grab players off the field or talk to players face to face, where they could turn it into where that's just like a kind of a press conference setting, where, either we do it over like a Zoom type thing, or they do it kind of out on those tennis courts where they just bring a couple of players up and, media members have to stay in the chairs or whatever like that. But frankly, for me, I'll take any access that they're going to give us as long as we get to go out to California.
So, John, I know that there was a report out there today that the Cowboys are not interested in trading Leighton Vander Esch. Is that correct? And has that even come as much of a surprise? Is that already what you had sort of figured out at this point anyways?
No, yeah. I mean, with that being said, yeah, they're not interested in trading Leighton Vander Esch at probably the current price that would be being offered. Like some kind of like a late round pick, which a team's not going to offer much more than that for a guy. They didn't, this is his final year of his rookie contract. They can sign him in the offseason if they want to, because the Cowboys didn't extend the 5th-year option on his rookie deal. So, yeah, if some team wanted to give like a first-round pick, I think the Cowboys would listen, especially after what they just did in the draft at linebacker. But no, I mean, everything that I've gathered from behind the scenes and what I've heard is that they want him still here long term. They need him to prove that he can stay healthy. But if he's healthy, they like the player and they want the player on the team. They really want to see what he can do this year if he can stay healthy for a full 17-game season. And if that's the case, then yeah, they would gladly re-sign him. It's not like they have any issues with the player on the field. It's just is this going to be Sean Lee all over again, where he just as good as the player is, he just can't stay on the field. So if he can show that he is, they're going to offer. They're going to try and keep him. Now, he might get a better offer from another team. And if that's the case, well, then you have Jabril Cox and Micah Parsons and Jalen Smith and some other guys that you can potentially add. But no, if he's willing to stay in Dallas, they would like to have him if he can stay healthy.
John, of the players that are back, those who are, whether it's an elite name, a Demarcus Lawrence, Ezekiel Elliott, or if it's even a Jalen Smith or someone else, who, in your opinion, if you had to pick 2 or 3 names, And obviously you want your better players to all have better years, but must get better from where they were a year ago.
Yeah, I think I did an article on the Athletic earlier this week on just like 10 players that absolutely have to step up this year and elevate their game from last year. And for me, the top two guys are one on offense and one on defense. And on defense, it's Demarcus Lawrence. He's an outstanding all-around player, and he does a lot more than what shows up on the stat sheet. But they need that from him. But they also need the sack numbers. They need the quarterback pressures. They need the quarterback hits. Like, those numbers have to be better than last year. He has to be double-digit sacks. He's got to be 20-plus quarterback hits. He's got to be an elite pass rusher again for this defense to elevate itself to where it needs to be. And then on offense, it's Ezekiel Elliott. And that's just because, like, just asking you guys, can you imagine a season where Ezekiel Elliott has a good year and the Cowboys don't win? Like, it hasn't happened. I mean, and not just Ezekiel Elliott, but I mean, you can go DeMarco Murray, you go Emmitt Smith. I mean, when they have a good season from their running back, they're going to be in good shape. And so if he has a big year, a bounce back year from last year, not only producing on the field, I mean, they need the bigger runs. They need more explosive plays out of him. There's no question about that. But maybe even more than that, they need him to take care of the ball. They can't have the 6 fumbles. They can't have him being the leading the league in fumbles amongst running backs. I mean, he has to elevate his game too. And if he does that, that's going to lead to wins. I mean, after Dak, to me, the most important player is Ezekiel Elliott. That'll tell you exactly how good this team's going to be. And if he has a big year, I think it's a big year for the Cowboys.
What happened with Malik Hooker, and how did that come back up again, given how many one-year deals the Cowboys have used on that safety position? It wouldn't seem to me like they'd really want to add another one, does it?
No, I think it was the whole time. I think it was going to come down to they were going to bring in a few safeties, and it was going to probably be some guys that had some injury history, and obviously it was going to be guys that they only wanted to sign on one-year deals, and so that really just giving you those parameters was going to limit you to who you were going to bring in. So that was during the time when they brought in Damontae Kazee. They bring in Hooker. At the time, we thought Keanu Neal was a safety, but so they signed Neal and Kazee, and I think the difference between Kazee and Malik Hooker, it was going to be one or the other, and they both are coming off injuries. And seeing Kazee out there last week on the field during OTA shows you that he has to be at least on track, if not ahead of a schedule with where he is with his Achilles. So I think that's what happened. It came down to the medical side of it. And then also probably helped out that, Damontae Kazee's obviously played with Dan Quinn. And so it came down to those two guys. And here's the thing, like, it kind of goes back to even like last year. Look at like how long it went before Everson Griffin was signed, and we've seen it before with J.W. and Clowney and how long it took before he was signed. Generally, when all these teams are kind of waiting, like how many of those guys really pan out to have this just huge year when they're not signed until late in free agency? I mean, generally the free agents that go to new teams that make an impact right away are usually added in March. So it's not necessarily just a Cowboys thing. I think there's plenty of teams that would be like, hey, I would like to have a guy that could possibly pick off 5-6 passes on the back end of our defense, but there's got to be some other concern there. And much like with Earl Thomas, his is obviously off the field concerns, but with Malik Hooker not being signed by anybody, it's pretty clear that there's got to be some questions about the medical side with him.
Well, yesterday was June 1st, and we have not seen a flurry of things happen yet. Do you expect some stuff around the league to start to happen? Not particularly the Cowboys, but just, big moves going on?
If anything, I would say I look at the quarterbacks, like, guys that are up for contracts, like Lamar Jackson, guys like that could potentially get a new deal. And the reason why I say that is because this would be the time of year you get something like that done. And now that Dak's contract's in place, now it falls in place for those next guys to kind of, okay, who's going to be the next quarterback? And it'll be probably a number that surpasses Dak. And so that would be the next big deal there that I could see in terms of contract. But I'm still not completely sold on Aaron Rodgers staying with the Packers and Julio Jones staying with the Falcons. And so I could see in the next month at least one of those two guys being traded somewhere else. I think Julio Jones is the much more likely one, but the Aaron Rodgers thing is not going away. So I would say those would be the bigger moves. In terms of the Cowboys, though, I don't see any, unless they, just had like in the next few days a rash of injuries at a certain position where they just had to, sign a body or something, then yeah, maybe they do that. But just from being at rookie minicamp and OTAs, they're not doing anything that should lead to any type of injuries, and especially with any of their players that have been anywhere near coming off an injury or surgery or anything last season. Those guys are really not doing much at all. I mean, it's really all about getting to that first day of training camp. And I think as of where they are right now, the Cowboys are pretty happy with their rosters at. The only position that I think they'd like to upgrade is backup quarterback. And it just doesn't appear that there's an option out there that they really love more than Garrett Gilbert at this point.
When you draft somebody in the first round or second round, you probably expect them to start, or at some point, if you're a high first round pick, you're going to be a Pro Bowler, maybe all pro. And anything other than that, I don't know. But is Jabril Cox, who falls to the fourth round, did he fall to the fourth round, and why did he fall to the fourth round? Was it because he didn't play but 1 year at a Power 5? Because North Dakota State can beat about 90%, well, 50% of the Power 5s, if not more.
Yeah, for sure. I'll say just from, and again, I haven't broken down his tape, but just from the things I've read and seen and heard about him, I think that there's probably still a little bit, there's always going to be, if you're going to fall like that, there's going to be some questions about your game. And for him, I think that he stacks up well in the passing game, and maybe that he just wasn't the complete player when it comes down to the, being a three-down linebacker that you can have on the field at all times. If you're not that guy, teams aren't going to take linebackers in the first couple of rounds because the value really isn't there. Micah Parsons is a guy, Leighton Vander Esch, Jalen Smith are guys that should never come off the field. I don't know that Cox is looked at as being like a three-down linebacker right now. Now, he might be that, and maybe he would have been that if, let's say, he played the last 4 years at LSU as opposed to just the last 1 year. But, yeah, there's no question that had to factor in, because it wasn't like it was some secret that only the Cowboys liked him. I mean, that was a guy going throughout the third round. Most people were still saying, I can't believe this guy's out here. And then you fall to the end of the third round, you're still out there. I mean, it was clear he was one of the best players available, and the Cowboys seriously considered him at the end of the third round or with one of their third round picks, and probably would have taken him with one of their third round picks if they would have had a corner in the first round, But, after taking Micah Parsons, they weren't going to sit there and take another linebacker with one of those third round picks. So he was there in the fourth, and he might end up being, a future starter. I mean, they found Damian Wilson there. They found Anthony Hitchens in the fourth. I mean, just because you win in the fourth round doesn't mean you can't be a starter, especially on this defense.
No question. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Jon Machota, theathletic.com, with us on Wednesdays in the 5 o'clock hour. A couple of notes